So, I recently created this video talking about possible features we could see in the next No Man's Sky update, and I always ask the question to other players, what would you like to see added? And boy did you guys deliver, so much so that I've decided to create a video around updates other No Man's Sky players would like to see added to the game. And some of these are freaking awesome, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get stuck in. Now, as always with these update speculation videos, I need to add that these may or may not come to fruition in future updates, but I think that a lot of them would be reasonably technically possible and vastly improve the game and its depth, which is much needed if Hello Games are going to bring in new players and retain existing ones. And as a quick recap, the major updates I covered in the previous video included ship customization, an underwater based update, a proper function for the space station override, along with a few smaller updates and much more variety, which includes planets, flora, fauna, and everything in between. Similar to the Origins update again, so everything in this video is going to be different to those already discussed. So first, let's talk about multiplayer enhancements. Now, YouTube user MGGummyBear has come up with a couple of pretty neat ways to improve the multiplayer experience because, let's be honest, No Man's Sky is so damn big which can make it feel just a little bit lonely. Now, they've suggested that we could get some multiplayer oriented Nexus missions around aspects of the game that already exist, say like spaceship dogfights. And I think the dogfights in the game are pretty good as they are, and they have been made better with recent updates as well, so being able to take on other players instead of NPCs would be an awesome addition. Another suggestion they made around multiplayer was clans, and maybe we could have clan bases that we could raid in a PvP style environment, which would be awesome. You guys got any thoughts on these potential multiplayer enhancements? I think they're cool. So I'd love to see if you guys have any extensions on MGGummyBear's suggestions. So, sticking with clans, at least to a degree, user Fabrizi304 has some suggestions along that line as well. Now, they mentioned they like clans and clan bases, so the bases could be much larger than any player created base that we have already, and they also added they like clan to have a freighter fleet, perhaps with up to a maximum of 5 freighters. Like, could you imagine the scale of huge multi-freighter battles? That would be freaking awesome! And they've also mentioned that they'd like to see a storyline for each faction. So I'm assuming Gek, Vikine and Korvax here. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But each faction would have a capital city on a planet, perhaps their homeworld, which we could explore and of course undertake endless amounts of quests. Now, moving on and in theme with Halloween, which just happens to be the day I'm recording this audio, user NitroLight1778 has a few updates to expand on the horror and already existing creepy side to No Man's Sky. So, first up they've mentioned sea monsters because currently we have, and I quote, an overweight anglerfish and an eyeball on a stick. I must admit that did make me laugh because it is painfully accurate. But giant sea monsters that can do serious damage would be fucking awesome. They've also gone on to suggest having more creepy space encounters along with expanding derelict freighters. Perhaps having tougher beings to kill in there and some more valuable rewards or something along those lines. Now let's make a beeline and talk about farming. Now of course we can already farm plants to get things like Gravitino balls and albumin pearls, but user Minyor1234 has the idea to actually set up a farm with the creatures we find throughout our travels. Now, I must admit, I previously never even thought about this as an option, but I think it would be pretty cool. They've suggested we can grind for S-class creatures who I assume would yield more produce and obviously, most importantly, make us more money. Or give us ingredients to make more cooking recipes. You know, pretty neat. They also have a totally different suggestion around drones which we could purchase, which they could then head out onto a planet and scan for flora, fauna, and then give us all the units to them, but it would cost, I don't know, nanites or units to use that drone each time. And I think that's a pretty cool update, and I'd actually like to add to that. I think these drones could go out and find us new points of interest on the planet as well, which would be pretty cool. It may take away a little aspect of exploring on foot, but I think it would improve the game all round. Because let's be honest, most of the planet looks the same as it is, and all the points of interest are the same on every single planet. Right, so user Doubtfuldrawing has been busy and has plenty of suggestions in various areas of the game for improvements and updates. Now, I won't go over each one as we'll be here a while, but I will cover the main ones along with a few miscellaneous ones which I thought sounded good. So, to add to my suggestion of customizable ships, they've included the ability to actually walk around our ships. So it would put it in between the size of a regular ship and a frigate, and aptly name it a shipgate, or a shipgate, whatever you want to call it. I quite like that. Anyhow, if we're going to get big multiplayer battles and shipgates, Doubtfuldrawing suggested players could man turrets in there, whilst another player perhaps pilots it, and I think that would be damn awesome. They've added some neat suggestions around factions and co-op which other users have mentioned as well, and it seems like these are pretty high on the priority list of a lot of players. Another one they've added which I thought would be nice involves being able to create a base with another player. So basically each player has joint ownership of the base and can modify it in its entirety even when another is offline. And to add to that, while sticking with bases, they've also suggested being able to favourite bases at a teleporter, which would be a small but a great little addition, along with having base trackers to see how many people have visited your bases. And mailboxes, apparently. So, to make the universe feel a little less lonely. The Doubtfuldrawing has also expanded on my water-based update suggestions by adding things like pirate reputations, the addition of boats and new warships, so basically a sea freighter with the ability to upgrade these. And in addition to that, submarine frigates, submarine squadrons, and so on. Honestly, just a very in-depth water-based update would be fecking great. And co-op enhancements, of course. Now, moving on to Doubtfuldrawing's miscellaneous updates, I thought some of these would be great additions. So, we're talking about things like increased presence of predators, both on land and underwater, fishing and boats with the ability to find crashed wreckages. I mean, if you're telling me in the whole of the No Man's Sky universe we can't find wrecked boats underwater, I mean, come on now. Anyhow, they've also mentioned having new recipes players can create, base NPCs that walk around and interact with our bases, expansions to settlements, which includes new missions to find those brand new shipgates, or shipgate parts, true orbital base building without need to glitch, hoverboards, flying monstrosities, and hunger or thirst meters. Perhaps in survival and permadeath mode, which includes the possibility of us getting poisoned, where we'd need to find food and medicine for healing. Honestly, go and look at Doubtfuldrawing's comment on the previous video. There are even more suggestions than I've just gone over, and some of them are fecking awesome. And there is another comment from a user who is also being super busy thinking about some great updates as well. And I'm definitely going to say this wrong, so I do apologise in advance, but this user is Gyrannon, however you say it. I thought their exosuit suggestion was totally awesome. So basically what they're saying is we should get the exosuit type and classes. So for example, we could have exploration exosuits which have a much better hazard protection, or combat exosuits which have a much better shield, along with exosuit classes. Gyrannon is yet another user who mentioned factions with the addition of multiplayer galaxies. So these could be super popular, but another one of their suggestions was NPC location variety, which is something I can totally get on board with. Because, as I've mentioned already, points of interest are the same on every planet. So, some of their additions could include things like smuggler bases where we can sell and buy illegal goods, dig sites where we'll see NPCs examining ruins or an atlas structure, and of course, larger settlements with different species. Gyrannon would also like the missions we can do to be more specific and real tougher, and I totally get what they mean. Like, missions to kill sentinels are pretty vague. You could travel to another system on the other side of the galaxy and kill them, yet still complete the task, which just feels a little, I don't know, pointless. Why not send us down somewhere where sentinels are attacking NPCs and have us destroy them there or help defend them? Seems a bit better to me. They've also suggested the lore of the game be vastly expanded so we actually have stuff to read. And I get that as well, because we can come across artifacts that are thousands of years old and we know absolutely nothing about the history, especially within all of the alien races in the game. So expanding that would be awesome. So moving on, let's talk about story missions. And this was a great suggestion by user Gdownification, along with them wanting cities, which I agree with, more freighters, and more multiplayer missions. But let's talk about story missions because it hasn't really been touched upon too much. So Gdownification has pointed out, and rightfully so I think, that the current missions don't really make the universe feel lived in, and a lot of them are like, go here, get this thing, come back. rinse and repeat. So it gets pretty repetitive and it's not overly interesting after a while. So what could be better? Well, they suggested they would like, say, 20 or so fully fleshed out story missions which are obviously more complex than the existing ones and perhaps include moral decisions. An example they gave was finding a planet which is coming under regular Sentinel attacks. So basically what happens out of Sentinels but on a much larger global scale. And then we have to decide whether or not we want to get involved. Perhaps we find out the Sentinels are actually helping an already dire situation. Who knows, but some story missions like this would be much better than the ones we currently have and a nice addition. So, as always, if there is still something you'd like to see added to the game that hasn't yet been covered by either comments from other players or my original video, by all means leave another comment here detailing what you'd like to see. We can never have too many suggestions on improving No Man's Sky. You never know, I may even create another video like this one and you'd be included in that as well. And there are a bunch of updates and features that you guys out there want to see added into No Man's Sky in the near future. Now, whether or not these get added into the game is of course a total mystery, but I'd love to see some of them added myself. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you're still here, it would be totally awesome if you could support my channel by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. You can also become a channel member as well, where I'll be posting coordinates to a whole bunch of super rare and unique items and places to visit. You'll also get some unique emojis and badges as well when leaving a comment. I mean, what's not to love, right? And as always, thank you for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.